Well, joining me now in studio to discuss further is Ibrahim Otieno. He is the County Chief Officer of Environment here in Nairobi County. Thanks so much for joining us, Ibrahim. Now, the rains are looming. We've had a sense of them, but more is to come. When exactly is this work set to begin, and how long is it expected to take?
Thank you for having me. Once the rains are already with us here, we've already seen the onset of El Nino has begun. The works are expected to go throughout the period that we have the El Nino period, and also, of course, beyond that, because these are plans that we started way earlier before it was announced that we're likely to have El Nino. So the work will continue even after, but there's intensity that will happen during this period as we expect El Nino to come.
But is this adequate time? Because as you've said, the rains have started. We haven't felt the wrath of them, but we literally have a few more weeks till the beginning of October, which is when the Met says that they're likely to begin. Is that really enough to unclog all the drains in Nairobi, for example?
Yes, there's a lot of work that went before we now got to the launch, and most of it was actually just planning phase, getting to know the drains that require urgency. So we've mapped in all the 17 sub-counties in the city, we mapped all the drainage systems that require immediate action. There are those that will require between maybe 15 to 20 days to do, and that is why the youth that we've gotten today will really be helped. The focus will be on these particular drains that have already been identified. So first we'll now deal with the drains that have been identified to be problematic, then we move to other areas. So yes, we'll work, even if it means working the clock day and night to ensure that this is done, it will be done.
Now, as the governor said, buildings are set to be inspected in Nairobi County to test them for their safety and whether they can withstand these heavy rains. One may question that this should have been done a long time ago, not just ahead of these rains. Tell us more about that. What's expected to happen if a building is not safe?
In fact, I think His Excellency mentioned that the Building Inspectorate Department in the national government had already done inspections and they'd already given a report. Now it's just to follow up on the report and ensure that it's implemented, to ensure that those buildings that would have been considered unsafe, people are advised to move out of those buildings before, the rains come. So that I think is what will happen, but I think the report is already done. It's not just we are doing it now, but it's already done. Will
buildings be brought down if they are deemed unsafe?
Of course, I think the first step is to ensure that if this building can be brought back, if there's still something that can be done structurally to ensure that they are sound, then of course that should be the last resort. It shouldn't be the first resort, the first action, but it should be the last resort. That if your house is not structurally sound and it cannot be revived, therefore it does. The good thing is just to bring it down and ensure that people are safe.
Is the county doing anything to provide shelters for those who may be affected during the heavy rainfall that is expected, because it is likely that numerous people will in fact get displaced?
Yes, and during the planning phase, and I think we work with the national government and part of our teams from the disaster management unit and the public health. And one of the things we've also mapped out is areas where people could be evacuated. Those include schools, social halls that are owned by the county government, and our other facilities that we own where people can be taken to shelter during the event.
And as the County Chief Officer for Environment, what plans are in place to safeguard the environment? We do know that plans are in place to safeguard human life, but what about our environment?
Yeah, so, and I think when during today's speech with the Excellency, the Governor, he mentioned something about people, not looking or taking care of the environment. And one of the things that people do a lot is illegal dumping. And one of the laws that we have today in the city is Nairobi City County Waste Management Act of 2015 that provides very strict penalties for people found to be doing illegal dumping. And we have a whole team called Environment Monitoring, Compliance and Enforcement that is going to go out besides these youth that are going to be working to ensure that people do not, relitter or redump in areas that are already cleared by these teams.
All right. And just finally, in your view, how can people prepare for El Nino? One of the things you've mentioned, but that's probably long-term, is not to dump, but for themselves during this period.
So first is just to be cautious. The list of areas that are likely to have hotspots will be shared with the media so that people in Nairobi can be, told to know which places to avoid during these particular events.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for, but thank you so much for your input, and we wish you all the best ahead in this operation as the county government today launched their plan ahead of the El Nino rains. It is a preparedness plan. So with me in studio, Ibrahim Otieno, the County Chief Officer of Environment here in Nairobi County.